Welcome to another garden vlog. Yeah, and we're still on this soft closing, until we get all of our plant materials and stuff in and maybe do some grafting and cutting and stuff like that, and or try to root some cuttings and stuff. Of course, by the time they root, we'll probably be on, a full closure until the next season, whenever the next season starts. There's definitely a lot of these little baby Christmas loquats everywhere, but check this out. We still got full flowers too. So this has been like 2 months or more probably, and there's still flowers. Look at these Illinois ever-bearing mulberries. They're shooting out like it's spring and putting out new little fruits. So I was just asking myself last night, is this the end of our winter? But no, like in a day or two, we're going to be back in the 30s, mid 30s. And, it might wipe out all this new growth. And hopefully it doesn't mess up and kill, potentially, a lot of our fruit trees. Because sometimes, you could get 2 or 3 buds frozen off, and then it may not produce any more buds. We'll see. It's sort of hard to imagine it not hitting, between like maybe 25 and 29 degrees at least 1 or 2 more times. It hit 27 twice already. And we know a lot of the fruiting plants and all that we do, they need those chill hours, to produce flowers and fruit. But we're also doing a lot of borderline things that, were considered tropical or subtropical, and trying to find microclimates and stuff for them to do, to survive in and hopefully produce fruit in the long term. And sort of on the other end of the argument or the spectrum is, as I grow older, I don't like the cold weather as much, but I don't like hot weather, humidity, constant rain, mosquitoes, and all that stuff either. Guess I need to move to Jamaica or Puerto Rico or something, right? Well, I just got noticed that my order for one of the 2 orders has been shipped. So a couple fig cuttings and mostly mulberry cuttings in this order. Well, I'm back in my music room, kind of my sanctuary. You know what that means? Middle of the night, so not outside, sitting in front of the potted plants, and don't really want to disturb anybody in the house, so I'm kind of in the furthest room away from everybody else here. I got that ship notice from Ding Dong's Garden maybe like 2 days ago, and it's finally saying that it was accepted to the post office in Washington somewhere, one of those islands, and I think they're in San Juan Island, but the post office may be on a different island. But yeah, no movement as of yet. Maybe tomorrow morning. So I guess my guitar music room is kind of like my sanctuary, my indoor sanctuary, to just hang out, do stuff, play music sometimes. Although I don't usually play it very loud in the middle of the night, because I don't want to disturb any neighbors or anything like that. But I've had my sling sickle, just sling in different parts of the yard, especially like high weeded areas where they just have been neglected, or certain areas where the lawnmower can't easily go. Maybe there's some cypress knees and different things like that, or even like our front yard, which doesn't have any kind of wide gate or anything for the riding mower to go in. So kind of like almost every day slinging a little bit, sometimes for a few minutes, sometimes maybe 45 minutes or an hour, just like seeing what we can do with certain areas. Now, in all of these areas that I'm working on, there's pretty good shade, so heavily shaded, and pretty good moisture, so flood prone potentially in some areas. And even in areas that aren't super floody, they're definitely going to have wet ground, even if not standing water, several times out of the year. So you might be asking us, or asking yourself, well, what are they going to put in there, and the answer is, it has to be something that fits within the spec of being able to tolerate wet feet and tolerate shade. And, probably at least every other season, possibly several times per season, we think, or I think, what more can I do? Are we done? Are we just about done? you know, yes, you can go and get other cultivars of the same thing, you know, pears, Asian pears, you know, maybe a couple heirloom apples that are reported to do okay in Florida, peaches and all that stuff. But the reality is, so far I haven't had good luck with peaches at all, and I would love to find the trick to keep them happy here on this land. And apples are so disease prone here that they're almost not worth doing. I mean, and with it being shady and or wet, that, you know, leads to more fungal issues and pressure on the trees. So, and I also have to consider, you know, are we close to septic tanks, drain fields, you know, foundations or something that, you know, a long-rooted plant or tree may not fit all of these areas, like mulberries and persimmons, which have, you know, like 40-foot roots. And, you know, what doesn't like wet feet? Avocados do not like wet feet, although, you know, you may have decent luck planting an avocado in a certain amount of shade, because those first few years our Florida sun can just tear them up, as you've seen with our, you know, fantastic, got just obliterated by, you know, 2 years of summers here. So yeah, we could get more mulberries, more persimmons, but we'd have to make sure they're not in those bad areas where their roots are going to destroy something. Bananas can tolerate, you know, water. They love a lot of water, but putting them in shade means they're slower growing, slower to bloom, and less likely to actually have ripened fruit before a frost gets them. So maybe some shrubs, something like a Jabotacaba, which is more shrub-like, you know, in north central Florida, if it survives the cold, then, you know, native, where it's native, or maybe South Florida where the tree can get huge. So you got red hybrids and Sabaras. That's the two, I guess, most cold hardy. And then you got some other guavas, like maybe the mountain guava, Cattleya lemon, and strawberry guavas. Possible tropical guavas, but let's see how the one we put in the ground last year fares this winter. You know, it's had some pretty close calls, and we're actually supposed to get down to like 26 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, on Thursday night. I definitely want to get more camellia tea plants, and I've planted a few in the ground. One of them got taken over by that big giant, like 1,000 feet of pumpkin or whatever squash that was that we grew a couple years back, and it killed it. I think I got another one in a raised bed that we built a year or two back. It may be alive. I seen it poking out a few months ago, or it may have succumbed to something. So we've planted a few, and not looking so good. Now we have an original one that's probably about 20 years old. It's doing well, flowers. I think it's flowering right now, or fixing to. And it's produced a few either seedlings or root suckers, and we got one last year, and it's looking pretty good. And there are a couple small ones under it right now, but probably wait till they grow a little bit bigger before I try to separate them. And you know what I've grown in one of those areas already is citrus, and have more growing right now. So with citrus greening and all that good stuff. And I do have, the sugar bell, 2 sugar bells that are supposed to be citrus greening, not resistant, not immune. So I don't really want to go and get the same thing over and over again, like 10 or 20 sugar bells. So most likely if I planted something, a couple or 10 or 5 or whatever, they would be ones that probably were not considered to be citrus greening or HLB resistant. What a lot of people don't know is that citrus are naturally understory, shade loving trees. They do not go into full production like we know it as we know it when we put them in full sun, but they're naturally occurring in the shade, just like pawpaw trees. And they say, well, if you put a pawpaw tree in the full sun, give it a shade cloth for a few years, and it starts to get used to it, like those Mexican avocados, it will produce a lot better. Although there, I think, is reported to be one or two pawpaws that will not easily tolerate full sun no matter what. I guess we can talk about pawpaws again. A big part of me wants to just go to, like, what is it, the KSU or Kentucky Department of Forestry, when they have those big plant sales where you can buy like 100 pawpaw seedlings for $1 a piece if you buy 100 of them or more, and just get them, whatever survives, graft, and just hope that whatever we have will eventually prove successful here, including improved cultivars that are from other states, especially ones that we have seen like do major flowering, like sunflower, NC1. Mango flowers, but it's very rare. It's maybe 1 to 2 flowers every other year. It just, I guess, doesn't get its chill hours enough. A big part of me wants to do guerrilla gardening and incorporate everything that I can into something like that. Loquats, pawpaws, citrus, probably beauty berries, passion flowers, a lot of native fruits and stuff, plus some not so native that often just pop up in certain places, like the loquats I mentioned earlier. But yeah, a lot of this is just one of those times where I'm saying, what's next? Is there anything next other than like bringing some more cultivars of stuff that we already have? Are we going to try that? Is it yangmei or bayberry? Maybe graft it onto wax myrtle, something like that. That would be a really cool project. I think in the a long time ago they trialed them in Florida, but mostly in the non-acidic soils. The sandy, what do you call it, calciferous soils or whatever, and they did not do well. But in acidic soil with wax myrtle, they may or may not do well. It could be a really good thing, and we're in the acidic soil that was not really trialed. So I haven't even tried the fruit. I've tried some fruit that was very similar from Asian markets, dried fruits and candies and stuff like that. So I don't know if the fruit is even worth it, but it would be different. And there are people around here that swear they've been able to keep their purple possum passion fruits and stuff alive throughout the winter. And we tried it one time, we got some fruits on it. It grew pretty well, and then the first winter it froze, and it didn't come back the second winter. People saying, put mulch on it, heavily mulch it, or heavily put compost around the base, before freeze, and it'll come back every time. So maybe we will try that again, because I think the fruits are a lot better quality than the maypop. And are we ever going to do sugarcane again? When I did sugarcane, I think it was already before we started doing this vlog. So I'm pretty sure it was, at least. And I was able to produce some and reproduce some for a few years, but my stock slowly dwindled away. And I don't know what happened, if it was too dry, too wet, too cold, something. And it eventually, my last piece or two, my plant, I think I had in that first raised like hugelkultur bed, died. Again, it might have been when I started the vlog here. We might have had that piece alive. But after that one died, it just nothing else came back. So people say do it in your wettest areas, and you know you might have good luck. So I don't know. It depends. If I can find some sugarcane sticks here that people haven't knocked the buds off of, I may try again. And as far as I can tell, lastly, possibly if we can find the secret to getting the jujube to grow well here, even if it's putting it on the highest, sandiest soil, which we've tried, we might have been too high. We might have been at a level where, you know, the roots didn't get proper moisture or something, even after a good rain. But we've had them low, and as far as I know, or I think we only have one grafted one left. My last root stock may have died after I moved it and somebody sprayed it on a fence line. It's kind of grown up there, weedy, so I'd have to like look back, you know, pull some weeds out of the way to see if I still have that one. But I do have a root sucker, and as long as I can keep the main grafted plant alive and get root suckers that survive, that's potential, you know, experimental rootstock or planting that I can put elsewhere and see if I can keep it surviving. But other than like persimmons and, you know, new persimmon cultivars and trying to get out of those honey and sugar figs and more into the berry tasting figs and a few other things, there's not really much else as far as perennial plants and trees and shrubs that, again, other than different cultivars of the same thing, that I think, you know, we have the potential to plant and keep alive here. But doing some guerrilla gardening may be the ultimate way to see if more things that are higher up or lower down, or that I just don't have land or room for here to grow on that high, that big level, on the quantity, it could help answer questions in my experimental mind, you know, about plants. And let's talk about mulberries. I knew that I don't need 50 or 75 cultivars of mulberries to experiment with. So I foresee within the next 2 years, hopefully having every cultivar that I really wanted and being done with collecting. That doesn't mean if seedlings don't come, you know, from some cool tree here that I don't have room to plant, I won't go and, you know, in the future, grow a garden with them, go plant them somewhere I don't think somebody's ever going to mow, hopefully. Chop it down and see what happens. And if in 3, 5, 7, 10, 15 years from now, someone happens to just randomly find one or multiple fruits that they say, well, how did this get here? I didn't plant this. I don't know who would have put this here. If you know, other people as a whole reap the benefits of my work, I'm okay with that. I'm even okay with that if they know who did it, you know, 10 or 15 years prior. But I don't really want people to know as I'm planning, as I'm just starting. I want to be able to do it in a way where people don't know what I'm doing. So gotta kind of be sneaky, and hopefully it'll pay off in the end. And a lot of people, like I said, will reap the benefits of me doing this. If I do it, I haven't started yet. Well, we're getting ready for our first hard freeze for this winter tonight. So I've been bottom soaking this Barbados cherry here because they really dry out really fast. And you know, just like guavas and stuff, they really need that water and rain to recover and stuff. So we're going to take it out of here since it's been soaking for over 24 hours in these concrete mixing tubs. And I recommend these highly because they seem to have some UV resistance and stuff. They seem to last quite a while. I'm sort of making an executive decision to take some of these plants, which, you know, I kept out during these light freezes or frosts we've had at 27 degrees. And I think a lot of these, because I'm getting rid of them, I'm giving them to community members, I want to take them inside and protect them. Hopefully it's no more than like 4 or 5 days. And it may be taking them in for a day or two, taking them out for a day or two, back in and out, and hopefully not as bad as last year was. And yeah, we did a lot of filming, just, you know, weather going back and forth. Hopefully we won't have to do that this year. Again, we're supposed to be on the soft closing of the season, and I don't really want to work my butt off, not only trying to propagate and get new things, but also trying to protect what we already have. This guy here, this Sabara jaboticaba, is like one of our most prized giveaway items because we had hardly any survive, and most of them are small. They never like blossomed or bloomed or whatever like this, just shot up with that good growth. You know, this is probably 4 or 5 times bigger than any of the largest of the other Sabaras that survived. And then we have 3 of these white sapotes, which show promise or potential to be oh, there's a 3rd one. Stem there. Potential or promise to be polyembryonic. Now this guy here has definitely had a little bit of cold damage already. Looks like there's a little bit of leaf burn and stuff there from maybe the previous 27 degrees. Some of them in the ground look like they've got major damage. Some of them look like they got no damage, but you know, these guys here pretty much have no damage. But we haven't hit 25 degrees or 21 or 22 or 26 or whatever it's going to be tonight. So we will see what can take what, you know, as far as what's in the ground. But these potted plants, I don't know if they would survive. They're still young. And we've been bottom soaking these impatiens and geraniums and stuff. They were out, you know, when it was cold the other day and the wind blew through them and they were just looked like they were dead or dying. So I said, let's bottom soak them, see if they will come back to life. And they all look like they have. So we're going to take them out, let them drain, you know, most of the day, and then put them inside as well. We'll leave our biggest avocado seedling out here in the container just to see how it fares in this weather. But some of the other ones have already shown some cold damage, so we're going to bring those in. But you know, we love to see how much they can take, hopefully, you know, like without killing the whole bunch. So if this guy dies, I don't know, I don't think it's going to die, but it could get some definite, you know, tip damage or major damage. Hopefully it'll survive though and be okay. Time to start collecting leaves and put them around these jaboticabas, maybe white sapotes, maybe catlay guavas, maybe some of the avocados we planted in the ground. We'll see how much time we got. We should have did this yesterday. Most people were doing it yesterday, but we were so busy. So we got a little jaboticaba there. Probably don't even have to dump them. If there's enough leaves around them, we'll just rake them up to it. You know, partially cover the base there. All right, it's always nice if you have a little bit of help, right? All right, you almost got that one full, don't you? Doing a wonderful job, Jarrett. Well, it is super windy out here. Probably getting gusts upwards of 18 or 20 miles an hour at times. Whew, here it comes. Feels like we're on the beach, except it's colder. And just threw pine needles and leaves around the base of a lot of these plants, like this catlay guava and stuff. It's not feasible to put it 3 or 4 foot in the air and make a big old cage, probably. Hopefully this will be enough. we did, yeah, same thing with pineapples and a variety of other things, jaboticabas, avocados, white sapotes. Well, it is that morning, the next morning, and you can see there's frost all over the little citrus tree here, and everything's all curled up and black. 23 degrees, I think, is what it hit. Not 25, not 28, not 21. We see ice crystals all over the wheelchair ramp rails here, just sparkling in the sun. Hard to see, but that roof is frosted up next door. That's a black roof, and it is white this morning. And our water buckets here are iced up. See that? Just broke it loose and got some water there. All the little, everything is kind of brown or white. All the grasses. Well, we just got a package from Ding Dong's Garden. Well, I'm not quite used to having cuttings this thick around. So maybe I hope I have enough things to graft, but maybe I'm gonna have to root some of these guys. So we went ahead and grafted some of those big giant scion wood pieces, and we put some in the dirt. All the figs went in the dirt because I really do not have any figs to graft onto. But am I disappointed that the scion wood pieces were so big? It's a change, because I've ordered from 2 or 3, one big nursery and maybe 1 or 2 other most likely private sellers on Etsy and stuff, and the cuttings are never that big. I mean, I could imagine if they were selling persimmon scions and looking at the size, the persimmon rootstock that I buy from nursery sometimes, I would realize that there's no way the rootstock that like Fruitwood Nursery would fit the scion wood size that Ding Dong's Nursery is selling. So that you might have to keep that in mind if you want to order some rootstock and maybe get scion wood from the same place you order that rootstock. So people, these nurseries or private sellers or whatever probably have an idea of what size needs to be cut and sold. Unfortunately, I didn't really do a video about grafting or doing any of these things, but maybe before we end this video, I'll show some of the grafts and cuttings, maybe in the morning. It's kind of like in the middle of the night now, or we'll do it in the next video. Well, we did a wakisa there, a wakisa here, and these 2 potted mulberries. I was looking for something I could put on this Illinois evergreen, and as you can see, that freeze wiped out all that new growth, but none of the it just wasn't big enough around unless I want to cut like to the base there for a graft, and I didn't really want to do that. My mulberries just don't have a big enough base for most of these big huge cuttings we got. But I did do like a multi-graft on this one, thinking I was going to do 5 or 6, but even, that's not big enough. So we did, I think, a wakisa there, a Grover's Best down there, and then we tried to do a side veneer graft with a huge piece of boysenberry down there. So out of the big mulberries that we cut to put those big scion wood pieces out, I think we're going to just cut these up a little bit more and try to root them. So just we're rooting them for a rootstock for next year, the year after, or whatever. And you got some pretty nice calipers there. So here we go. Got a smaller one there, about a 1 gallon pot there, with like 1, 2, 6 in there, and then several really large caliper ones here. So let's hope we get some of these guys rooted for next year's grafting. Well, it's been a day or 2 since I did any filming, and we had another frost morning. We was in a freeze watch, not a freeze warning. If you can hear me, a freeze warning. Every morning my throat is kind of messed up. Anyway, we definitely got a little bit of frost, some light ice forming on, our water containers, our little black ones we set our pots in, our plants. Sometimes when they're drying out, may or may not be able to see the really small ice crystals left here shimmering off of the sunlight here. and it's starting to get some sun and starting to melt. It was supposed to have been 32 degrees last night or this morning, but when I woke up at about 7, it was, I think, 36 or 38. So it must have hit somewhere around that 32 degree range and was already warming up before the sun came out. So we got maybe 3 nights to about 27 degrees total this year. We got one that was supposed to be 23 degrees. Other people reported it as low as 21 degrees Fahrenheit. And then last night, which somewhere between 32 and, who knows, frost forms, I guess, at about 32 degrees. So it could have been cooler, could have been 32. I just don't know exactly what it hit last night, because, I'm surprised that it wasn't somewhere around 32 or 34 when I got up at 7 a.m. And I think I read somewhere that there was potentially another Arctic blast coming, so I don't know how far south it's going to reach or how bad it's going to get again. But a lot of my plants are looking worse for wear, so I expect some die off, of a few plants. Hopefully the strongest ones will survive, select seedlings of avocados or whatever, white sapotes. But I don't know, I haven't really looked hard. I looked hard enough to see that even my lemon cattleya guava looks really bad. I talked, I think, last season on this garden vlog about needing to maybe move the cattleya guavas into more sun and less shade and less protection because they got leggy. But if they cannot survive where they are now, then there's no chance of getting it more into the sunlight, more into out in the open, without covering them. And I really don't want to have to try to start covering all the plants, because that's a lot of work. I'm getting older, more responsibilities. My body isn't doing as well as it used to. I just want a cat flying across the yard. Some people are saying in 15 or 20 years we'll be able to grow mangoes here. But if we have these Arctic sweeps, whether it's every 5, 10, 20 years, you're not going to be able to grow those things, at least long term. Now, I did do, as I probably said in this video earlier, several days ago, kind of covered those small jaboticavas and stuff up with pine needles and leaves and stuff. But, if it hits 21, 20, 19, I'm not sure, without covering, without adding heat, if they can survive long term. But who really knows? Sabaras are supposed to be more cold hardy, but some people say the red hybrids are more vigorous and stronger. I don't know. Robins are everywhere, eating tallow, eating camphor berries. There are woodpeckers everywhere and a variety of other birds. Of course, the robins have been here for a few weeks. When that cold weather hits, or right before we get a nice, deep, hard freeze, they come in by the thousands.